Hello everyone, welcome to William and the Magic Box. Today on our show, we are going to have Jonathan. Jonathan is from Washington DC in the USA. So let's see what Jonathan has to say. Enjoy the interview. Hello Jonathan, how are you?
I'm good, William. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for taking the time for the interview today. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm excited to do this with you.
So how's your day been so far?
Fantastic. Really good.
So tell me where are you from, Jonathan?
I am from Washington, D.C.
That's the place where you were born and raised?
No, I grew up in Massachusetts, in Western Mass, out in the country.
I see. And how long have you been living there in Washington, D.C.? A long time?
I moved here 18 years ago.
And tell me, what's the best part of living in Washington, D.C.?
What is the best part of living in Washington, D.C.? You know, I think it is seeing the connection between where government happens and where people live. It sort of humanizes the process in a way. You know, we're so used to seeing it on television as sort of this rarefied place, and living here, you realize that 3 blocks away from the Capitol building, there are people cooking dinner.
I see. And Jonathan, tell me a little bit about your career. I know you host a TV show as well, and you are a motivational speaker. So tell me a little bit about your career.
Sure. I'm a storyteller, cook, and author. So I speak and cook to people, cook with people, talking about food and life and connection.
So tell me a little bit about your books.
Sure. In fact, let me grab a couple of them.
Okay.
So there are 2 of them.
Okay.
They are collections of recipes and stories. I wrote the first one, almost 10 years ago. And they were based, I got my career started doing weekly live cooking demonstrations out at a local farmer's market. And so I wanted to turn those recipes that I was preparing each week with the food I found at the market, and the stories that I was telling to people while I prepared the food, the tips and questions that they asked about and that I shared with them. I wanted to capture that in book form, and that's what I did.
I see. So the inspiration for the book, it's about your routine of cooking.
It is the first book really turned into kind of a love letter to my parents, and the things that I learned about them, things I observed watching them throughout life. Last year, I just wrote a second edition of that book, and so it expanded that love letter to my life here in DC, and some of the things I've observed living here in a bigger city, in a much more diverse community over the last nearly 20 years. The second book just expanded on that. So it was about the people in my life, about my husband, my family, and friends here in the DC area.
Amazing, very good. Okay, so during the journey, I'm going to explore a little bit more about your career and also about your point of views.
Great. I look forward to it.
Are you ready to go on a beautiful journey through your memories in life and to share your point of views?
I'm looking forward to it. I've watched a few of your videos and they're wonderful.
Welcome to William and the Magic Box. So this is my best friend. Fun questions, okay? I'm just gonna play a song now just for us to move a little bit before the first question. Let's do it. Okay, Jonathan, so before we start the game, during the journey, if there is a question that you don't want to talk about for some reason, you don't want to answer, always can change, okay?
Great.
First question for you is, talking about your parents, tell me what your parents did in the past that always comforted you.
Wow, what did they do that always comforted me? You know, we're a family that says, I love you, and that hugs a lot. And I think that has brought me great comfort in life. I rarely get off of a phone call with them without 2 to 3 rounds of saying, I love you at the end.
And do you have siblings as well?
I do. I have a younger sister and a younger brother.
Wow, very good. And they live in Washington, D.C. as well?
They do not. So I grew up in Western Massachusetts, which is about a 6 to 7 hour drive from where I live right now. My sister lives on the coast of Connecticut, not too far outside of New York City. And my brother lives in Denver, Colorado with his husband.
Oh, you have a gay brother as well?
Yes.
Oh my God, amazing. Wow. Next question, let's do it. Okay, next question for you is, when was the last time that you laughed so hard that you couldn't stop?
Oh my gosh. I can't remember specifically, but I am sure it is when my husband said something that makes me laugh. He does it all the time. It's one of the things I value most about him, that he always keeps a smile on my face.
What is the biggest similarity between both of you, and what's the biggest difference?
What is the biggest similarity? I think we both really value the people in our lives and the time that we share with them. In fact, I think that's probably what is most special and most valued to both of us. What is the biggest difference? I love spending time outside. I love spending time in the country. I love gardening. I grew up with parents who owned a garden center. My dad grew up on a small farm. Jason absolutely hates all of that and would much rather be inside the house.
Good match, so you can kind of balance. Next question, Jonathan, let's do it. Right, before the next question, tell me a little bit about your show, Seasons to Taste. Tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. So I had the opportunity to film a TV show in the fall of 2019, and with COVID and all the challenges and excitement with that, it came out in the spring of 2021. It is 8 episodes broken up over the 4 seasons of the year, and it is all about the farm fresh seasonal food that I cook right here all the time in my kitchen and share with other people. It is also, at the beginning, in the introduction to the show, I share a belief that really guides my life. And that belief is that our life can and should be lived with joy every single day. And one of the most accessible ways for me to find that joy on a daily basis is to prepare a simple meal, set a table, and share it with the people I love. And so I did that during the show. We were in the kitchen, in conversation, sharing stories. They were people that I work with, local experts. My parents were in an episode. My husband is in an episode. It was a really personal show and a really special experience, an amazing opportunity to be able to write and direct my own show, which I think very few people get.
And when tell me about the idea, when the idea was born.
Sure. So I actually got a call from a production company out of New York City. Both of the principals are British, and Richard Jones is living in New York City. They run Bear World Magazine, and have a broader production company and wanted to get into some TV. So Richard called me up and said, "Are you interested in putting a show together?" And so we partnered over about a year and a half. And in fall 2019, somehow this thing came together, and we spent 2 weeks filming.
Easy. Okay, next question for you is, good question for you. What is one food you could eat for the rest of your life?
Oh, easy. Pot sticker dumplings.
Always been your favorite?
I love them. And I mean, I will eat a dumpling from anywhere, from, airport Chinese American restaurants. But I grew up eating really good dumplings. So my dad did his PhD in plant and soil science. And one of his classmates was Mr. Chang. And when they finished their PhDs, my dad went on to open his garden center. Mr. Chang went on to open a restaurant and what became a very large organic farming operation. So I would say 75% of the time when we went out to eat when I was a kid, we would go to Chang's restaurant. In fact, I think I was a teenager before I knew the restaurant wasn't just called Chang's, because we always said we were going to Chang's. And they made beautiful dumplings. The meat wasn't overworked, so it was nice and tender inside. The dough was so tender and thin. They were amazing. So I got hooked.
Is there something that you don't like to eat at all?
There's some really strong fish flavors that are challenging for me, but aside from that, I love really diverse foods.
All right. Next question, Jonathan. Let's do it. Okay, next question for you is, tell us something interesting about yourself.
Something interesting about myself. When I was 20 or 20, no, probably 23, 24 years old, I had taken over cooking Christmas dinner for my family each year. My mom is one of seven, and they're all married. They all have children. And so we ended up having two different Christmas dinners, one on Christmas Day and one a few days later. And she was getting tired. So I took over Christmas Day, and about 3 years in, decided to cook beef Wellington and baked Alaska. And it was a disaster. My timing was totally off. We ate dinner at 11:30 at night. So I said, I'm going to make this same meal a year later. And in flaming the baked Alaska, ended up setting the dinner table on fire.
Oh my God. And tell me something, Jonathan, as you love cooking, on those celebrations, like, holiday season, you always the one cooking or not? Sometimes you just, okay, I'm here just to enjoy, or not? You always cooking something or helping out?
I'm usually the one cooking, and I'm almost always at least helping out. I've learned two things about that. One is, one of the things that I really love about food, and I got serious about cooking. I grew up cooking, was in the kitchen with my mom. Food was always a special part of our lives. But I got really serious about it after graduating from college, from university. And I learned that there was a power in cooking, that, I was straight out of school. I had no money. I was living at my parents' home. I couldn't go out. I couldn't travel, but I could go in the kitchen, and with fairly simple ingredients and not a lot of money, I could create this world that was so far beyond what I could afford at that point. And I have always loved the fully recognizing that there are people who are food insecure, who do not have access. But for so many of us, I feel like food is really leveling, right? It gives a lot of people access to an incredibly rich and special world. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I have recognized over time is I would always, do a lot of the work myself, and the intention behind that was because I really wanted to give this gift to people. But I also recognized that sharing that time with people, that giving people the opportunity to make their own contribution to the meal, was important to them. And so now, even if I don't need anything, even if I have everything covered, I will find something to invite people to bring, to participate in, because at the end of the day, what's far more important than the food that ends up on the table or the work in the kitchen is people sharing time together.
Absolutely. I think in the end of the day, when everyone gets together, I think even the taste of the food, it tastes better, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Next question. Ready? Let's do it. Right. Before the next question, tell me, how long did it take for you to get your first book ready? And also, what was the most challenging part to put the whole project together?
So it took a shorter period of time because some of the work was already done. So when I wrote my book after my first book, after 2 years of doing live cooking demonstrations at the farmers market. And so we would develop 3 to 4 recipes every single week for these demonstrations. I'd go out to the market. I would have cooked them once or twice at home, another 2 times during the demonstration. I'd get feedback from people. I would hear the questions people would ask about the recipes. And so all of that research and work was done. So actually pulling it together was probably I don't know, 4 to 5 months. So a really short period of time compared to what it usually takes to write a book, but I'd done so much of that work. What was the biggest, I think the biggest challenge in the process was learning all of the pieces that aren't just the recipes or the recipe information. It was writing the stories, finding the photos, writing the header descriptions of the recipes, the sidebars that ended up filling out a lot of the pages. So it was all of those other pieces that you don't expect.
I see. All right. Next question is, what three things do you want to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered for making people happy. I would like to be remembered for being generous, and not necessarily financially, but of spirit, of giving of myself and of my time. And for a while, I would love people to remember the sound of my laugh and what my face looks like when I smile.
Oh.
I have another book. I don't have a copy of it near me right now, but it's a small book on vinaigrettes. And at the end of the book, I dedicated it to my good friend Sean. And Sean called me a few years before I wrote this and let me know that he had cancer. And he had a type of cancer that the odds of surviving were very low. And he called me early in this process. And Sean was a student and had master's degrees and was a writer and an artist. And he said, I'm not leaving behind a great work of writing. I'm not leaving behind a great work of art. And I that's troubling me. And I thought about it for a minute and I said, I live in Washington, D.C., and every day I walk past buildings and monuments and statues with people's names on them that are commemorating their lives. And I said, most of these people, I have no idea who they are. That information isn't present in the statue or the monument or the building. But even if I researched them, even if I found out the facts of their life, I don't think that I would capture what was most important to them, right? I don't know how Abraham Lincoln sounded when he laughed. I don't know what his favorite food was. And I think those are the things that we treasure most in having other people recognize about us, right? It's the things that we feel are important about who we are. It's not our accomplishments. It's not, the buildings. It's not the things we create, but it's who we are. It's what makes us happy, what is meaningful to us. And I recognize that all of that disappears within a generation or two after we pass in life. So, which could sound a little morbid, but I think that it's much more positive than that. First of all, it's free, right? Not much lasts. So stop worrying so much about, what is going to be left of us in 100 years and worry about what you are living in your life today. The second piece is I think there is something that can last forever from us. And that is the lessons that we teach people that they learn and go on to teach other people. So it is what we teach. It's what we inspire in other people that survives us. And with Sean, it was so many things. I mean, he was such a mentor and such an influence on my life, but in particular in this book, he is the person who taught me a vinaigrette, and every single time that I get up in front of an audience, I make one.
Wow, that's beautiful, Jonathan. Yeah. And next question, let's do it. We'll talk about friends now. Tell me something. Your friends, when you go to their place for a meal or when you go to their parties, they get intimidated knowing that you are such a professional cook. Did they get intimidated or not?
Some do. And I've definitely heard that comment from people that they can't have me over for dinner because, they can't cook for me. And I felt throughout the life of my career that we were getting a few less invites. My answer to them always is that, I did not get this by turning down a whole lot of food. And so for me, the greatest honor, of course, is being invited and getting to sit at someone else's table. I have never and would never complain about the quality of what someone cooked for me because it's so special that they would think to do that.
Very close to you that you can talk to them like completely open. If they would ask you in the end, can you tell me in private that there was something that you didn't like, would you tell them, or have ever happened that or not?
If they asked me personally, yeah, I would share it with them. I mean, if they wanted that information.
Okay.
I think that so a couple weekends ago, I traveled with some friends. Jason and I, my husband and I, traveled with some friends and went out to dinner. And at the restaurant, the vegetable on Jason's plate was asparagus. Now, here in the Washington, D.C., we were in Tennessee that weekend. Asparagus is only in season in the spring. And it's at its best in the spring, and it pales in comparison the rest of the year. And I didn't say a word, but when we left the restaurant, our friends and my husband were saying, we knew you were looking at our plates and judging that asparagus that was on it.
Next question for you is, what makes you most proud?
What makes me most proud? Making people happy. It's interesting. In writing my books and even releasing the TV show, creating them have been great experiences. Releasing them has been really hard. And I think it's why, and it's the same reason that I struggle with social media. My career, my vocation all started with doing live demonstrations. And I love being live with people and feeling that immediate response and getting to have that connection. And releasing the books and the TV show, you sort of send them out there into the world. And even the people who love you best kind of come back and go, great job. You're like, no, I just spent a year creating this. This is like giving birth to a child. You don't just tell someone their baby's pretty. Like, they want to know, is it their eyes? Is it right? Like, what about my child that I just gave birth to are you in love with? And so with the book, you're like, no, like, I need to know what sentence on what page changed your life, not this was great. And I don't mean that to be ungrateful, obviously, but so I thought a lot about that. And with releasing the second edition of my first book, I was home with my parents when it arrived. I actually shipped it and stored it in their barns. And we went through a copy, and again, it's got pictures of them and of our family and stories about our family. And we were all sitting there laughing and even crying it sometimes together. And I realized that was, if I never sold a copy of the book, if a single person never told me that this book meant anything to them, that being able to share that moment with them and to both share that emotion and to have them be proud of me meant everything. And so I think that's what makes me proudest is that creative process. It's the thought and the detail and the passion and the creation that comes out of me.
Amazing. Beautiful, beautiful, Jonathan. 3 questions left for you. Let's do it. Next question is, what do you consider most romantic?
Oh, what do I consider most romantic? I am such a big gesture person, and I will, if I could, I would float hot air balloons and have parades going down the street for my husband. And what ultimately makes me feel most loved at the end of the day are small gestures. He will, he'll order a new utensil for the kitchen. There will be days when I film something or I do some work and flowers will show up at the house from him. So it's those small gestures. There's something else that I had an experience in my late 20s. I just started dating, And I was a big romantic, and I love romance movies. And a friend showed me the movie Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is a rough movie. And it is ultimately about a couple who are living this brutal life because the wife lost a baby and has gone a little insane because of it. And this friend said, I think this is the most romantic movie ever. And I got to the end and I thought, should I get out of this house quickly? But I realized over time, thinking about it, that what he was speaking to was someone who would give up sort of the dailiness of their entire life to stay with and care for someone. And as I watch my parents age, it's that compassion, and it is being there for each other in the moments that are both good and easy and the moments that are hard. It's the fact that, I call my parents almost every day, and my dad will say how proud he is of something my mom has done, or that he says all the time, my day is better because I got to share it with your mother. Mom will get a haircut, he'll say how beautiful she is. So it is those moments of compassion and caring over time that I think is the most romantic thing.
Wow. Yeah, those gestures always means a lot, for sure. 2 questions left for you, Jonathan. Let's do it. Right, but before the next question, in your opinion, through your career, what do you think that people do a lot of mistakes that's like cooking? There is something that people always do, some mistakes that for you go like, okay, it's like how can I put that? It's like you see that people always continue do those mistakes that you go like, okay, they could avoid that. There is something in cooking that anything.
There are 2 ingredients, I think, here in the United States that people get that people miss the most often in their cooking. Number 1 is salt. We're so worried about salt. We're so focused on health and USDA and the American Heart Association, doctors, everyone else is telling us salt is bad. And people leave it out, particularly when they are cooking much healthier food. They're cooking vegetables, they're cooking fish and chicken. And so they leave the salt out and it tastes terrible. And they go out and get a fast food hamburger because that tastes good. And it tastes good because there's salt and there's fat. The unhealthy levels of salt in their diet are really coming from packaged, processed, and prepared foods. And so I think that salting our food to the point where it tastes good, if most of what we're eating are these whole ingredients, is not unhealthy, and in fact makes that food taste good and makes us more likely to eat it. The other thing that I see people miss is acidity. So a splash of lemon juice is a splash of vinegar in a dish to brighten it up. So that's specific about what we cook. I think the other mistake that people make most often is not in what they do, but in how they think about it. We spend so much time worried about what is healthy. We sacrifice, we cut things out. And then we spend all of our time trying to reintroduce them to our diet. So I hear all these people saying, well, I'm cutting out carbs, I'm cutting out gluten. And then they're eating cauliflower rice and cauliflower crust pizza and shaving zucchini to turn it into pasta, all of which are delicious ways to eat those vegetables, but they're terrible pasta and rice and pizza. And so the problem is not the foods we eat, but it's spending all of this time feeling like we are suffering, like we're sacrificing when we don't need to. And I say, you've cut this out, and here is this whole world of amazing food. What if you just cooked the best version of this and forgot that ever existed? So again, food to me is such an easy, accessible source of daily joy. And the fact that we give that up so often and turn it into a source of fear or suffering seems like such an unnecessary waste.
Wow. The message out there. I'm sure people watching that now, they're going to appreciate your feedback. Next question is, if you could be in somebody's place for 24 hours, who that would be and why? For any reason.
My dad has talked about who could he who he would like to be able to sit down to dinner and talk to for an hour. And so I'm gonna borrow one of his answers because I think it would be so interesting to spend a day in this person's life, and that is my great grandfather. He came over to the United States from Poland. Initially came over by himself, and at that point there was no telephone. You know, letters might or might not reach home, and he was 18 or 19 years old, and created this entire life. And I asked my dad uh, recently when we were talking about this, did he ever experience joy in his life, or was his life just practical? Was it just struggling and surviving? They were on a small family farm, um, and my dad said, I don't know, but I wonder, how did he feel when he purchased that land for the first time? How did he feel watching his children be born? So I would love to spend 24 hours in his skin, to experience 24 hours of his life, and see what that felt like. Was he proud? Was he brave? Or did this just feel like something he needed to do, and it's what he got out of bed in the morning and did?
Wow. Now I understand your surname, because I thought you had some background, like if
Yes.
you're Polish. I had a feeling. Amazing. Ready for the last one, Jonathan? Last question. Let's do it. Okay, but before the last one, let's say now, if you could choose one person to cook a meal at the start, any person in the world, sit down at a table and you're going to be in charge of this meal for this person, who that would be and why?
Oh, a person that I could cook a meal for?
Yeah, like anyone could choose anyone in the world now for you to cook a meal for this person.
May I give you two answers?
Absolutely.
So there's one person who I'd be really interested in cooking a meal for, and that would be Martha Stewart. And not because she's famous, not because she's famous for cooking, but she also comes from a Polish family, and came from a family that like mine a generation or two ago was poor and was very humble, and has built this empire. I also feel like there are a few moments of reading her writing over the years that gave me such a sense of the power of crafting ideas through words. And so I would love to talk to her about all of that. But at the end of the day, if I had one opportunity to cook a meal for someone, it would always be either my parents or my husband. Cooking for me can be such an act of love and such an act of giving, and given the opportunity, those are the people I would love to show that to the most.
I think your husband is very lucky. Oh my God.
So am I.
And what do you cook that he likes the most? There's something special that they go like, okay, that's something that's my favorite.
I think the dish that he says he likes the most is a fennel parmesan and a salad with an apple with a lemon vinaigrette.
All right. Last question for you is, what three things are you most grateful for?
What three things am I most grateful for? If I may, let's see. So winning the lottery, in terms of my parents, I recognize that is such a crapshoot, right? We sort of appear in this world and we don't get to pick the people who are going to raise us and the people who are going to support and love us. And I got so incredibly lucky. So that's my upbringing. Beyond that, the people in my life, and that is my family and my friends, my husband, the mentors that I have had over time. I feel like the single most important thing in my life, and the thing that makes life richest beyond any of the experiences, beyond money or anything else, are the people and the connections we have with them. And I am so blessed to have such incredible people in my life. The third is for my mind. I get so much joy out of thinking and being creative and solving problems, which is what being in the kitchen feels like to me, right? It's the problem of how do I take these ingredients in this season and bring joy to the people who I am cooking for. And so that thought process, that creative process, is so joyful and so pleasurable for me. And so I'm really grateful to have the mind to do that.
Beautiful. It's not the end yet. Let's play now the word association game. I'm going to give away some words. Just tell me one word that comes to your mind. Quick thinking, okay? So, I hope you are enjoying the interview. Before we do the word association game, don't forget to give a like. Don't forget to share this video. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Just click on the button right there. Thank you so much and enjoy the word association game. Let's start with money.
Money, opportunity,
Family.
love,
How about life?
adventure,
Sex.
pleasure,
Love.
treasure,
Politics.
necessary,
Religion.
challenging,
Fear.
universal,
Friendship.
everything,
Desire.
motivation,
Regret.
wasteful,
One word for success.
shared,
One word for wish.
one word for wish. Hope,
Okay. Happiness.
joy,
One word for Washington, D.C.
home.
By the way, before I carry on, how far are you from the White House?
We are just about 2 miles from the White House and less than 1.5 miles from the Capitol building.
Wow. One word for USA.
Challenging,
One word for your TV show, Seasons to Taste. One word to define it.
personal,
One word for storyteller.
communicator,
And the last one now, cooking. One word.
cooking, giving.
Right. Let's pretend now I'm going to meet your lovely husband for a coffee and I'm going to ask him, tell me the most beautiful thing about Jonathan and tell me something that he still needs to work on, to improve on. What he would say.
What would he say is the most beautiful thing? The way that I care for people. I think he would say is the most beautiful thing. What do I need to work on? Confidence.
Oh, you come across a very confident person. That's interesting.
So it's interesting. I am so confident in so many ways. I'm confident in, I would get up and if you said right now, hey, I have a keynote speaker who canceled, I need someone on stage tomorrow morning. I would say, in front of 1,000 people, 5,000 people, I'd say, great, who's the audience? I will be there. I will talk for an hour. Doesn't scare me at all. But I constantly, and I would walk off the stage and say, I'm pretty sure I did a great job. And I would believe that, but I would question every single moment of it.
Wow. Interesting. Right, let's play now Jonathan and the magic box, and you can ask me a question. Okay, you can ask me a question now, Jonathan.
So here's my question for you. Where and when have you lived that has most felt like home to you?
Wow, beautiful question. Okay, it's a beautiful question. And before I answered, I so far in my life, I lived in 3 different countries. I'm originally from Brazil. I lived in Portugal for 5 years before moving to London, and I've been living in London for the last 17 years. Those 3 places, when I look back, the 3 places were necessary in my life. I think I couldn't choose another place to be raised and grow up as Brazil. I'm so grateful that I lived 4 years in Portugal, that, just being a place where, my language is from. That's how everything started. It was a gift. London, it's a place that wasn't in my plans, like Portugal as well. And it's so interesting how life takes us in a direction that you're not expecting, that we're not planning, and never thought about being there before. Saying that, I would say London, and I'll tell you why. Because London, it's been a journey that made me get to know myself much stronger and better than I never thought before. I went through a lot of situations in London that it made me grow. It challenged me a lot. It made me a better person. It made me happy. And being in a place where the time just goes like that, and you have no idea how fast it goes. I'm sure, like living in Washington DC as well, time just goes fast. It's a place where you live. So I would say here in London, because it's the place that actually I've been in Brazil for 19 years. When I left, I've been here almost the same time as in Brazil, but it feels like home because I think life taught me a lot about life in London. I think London for me, it put me in a place where I could be myself and I can express myself, and also facing challenge like almost every day, and also learning a lot, and at the same time being happy and grateful for a place where I can literally be myself. So yes, I would say London, but saying that, my heart always going to be in Brazil, of course, and always in Portugal as well. So, but it feels home. When I talk about home, it's London for sure.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Jonathan, did you have a good time? Did you enjoy the interview?
William, I had a wonderful time. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much for taking the time, for being sweet and kind as well, and be part of this beautiful dream. But before you go, if you can share a positive message, something that you live by.
I have 2 beliefs that I live by. The first is that life can and should be lived with joy every single day, and that we can do that. Holidays, major events are wonderful, but that we should experience joy every single day of our lives. The other belief that I have is that we are here on this world to experience that joy and to care for each other. There's one more. You mentioned a quote, I think, in one of your messages talking about the interview, and there is a quote by Henry David Thoreau, which is, "We are constantly being invited to be who we are," and I think that I certainly see challenges every day. That insecurity that I mentioned in the interview is out there for me. But when I really pick up my head and look around, I feel like the world, the universe, God, whoever we want to ascribe that to, is constantly giving us that opportunity to succeed, to use our gifts, and to be who we're supposed to be in this world.
Wow, every single day. Jonathan, regards to your family, to your husband, and you keep in touch. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much. Okay?
William, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. So, did you like the show? Don't forget to give a like, to share it, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to be part of the show as well, first, subscribe to our channel, and after that, just go to our website, www.williamandthemagicbox.com, and send us a request saying why would you like to be part of the show. And I see you there. Bye bye. See you next time.